Jay Martatsu, how's the form? How we doing? This is like the post WrestleMania WWE Raw. Michael Cook, Colin Cronin, Brian O'Leary on the Irish NFL show Monday night, Week 5 review slash Monday Night Football preview. The day after the Giants upset the Packers in London in what was a great game. Colin, how are you doing, sir? First off, you doing good?
Not too shabby at all, Michael. Yeah, I'm wishing it was obviously the Monday night after, say, one of the big WWE events, because that generally means something crazy tends to happen. And obviously, we have more news from the NFL today, but I don't think any of it is a shock.
Maybe like the big Monday night news, like WWE style, is Mark's going to turn up? Brian, is that a?
I think that's very far. That's far fetched, Michael. I think Mark will be showing up this evening. Mark is out. He's been declared out. Is that what you say? He's questionable to return. No, he's not. He's officially out, and he's certainly out this week's Monday night show. Great all day yesterday. Really enjoyed your company as always. And whether you're a Giants fan, a Packers fan, a fan of the league, we saw what I thought was a really great game. Probably one of the best games we've seen in London over the course of the last 15 years.
Great atmosphere. So we'll talk about yesterday in a wee sec. If you're watching live, you can comment on YouTube and we'll go through questions at the end of the broadcast, see the crack. Obviously, folks, presented by Cassidy Travel, Ireland's number one Cassidy Travel, Ireland's number one travel agents. Check out the link in the bio. Also, check out the link for NFL Game Pass in the bio as well, where you can watch loads of games that aren't blacked out, including the final London game, which is the Jags at the Broncos, which is also on Irish TV at the end of the month. But obviously, a big welcome into everyone. We're going to jump on the news, which came out today at about 3 or 4 o'clock, and just bear with us tonight because it's an interesting broadcast. Just I think we're all a wee bit wrecked. These boys only had to drive 5 minutes last night to get home, and this boy here ended up missing the turn off for Armagh and ended up near Banbridge. Anywho, a guy in a worse position at the minute, Colin, well, not really, is Matt Rule. He got fired last night. Fired today, after last night's performance against the 49ers. And there's a couple of elements to this that I want to talk about. First off, I put Game Pass on in the car on the way back and only listened to the audio before anybody tries to pull me up on it with the cameras in the M1. But that game against the Niners was pretty much over at that point. I thought they would have given him a few more weeks. I just think it's... Week 5 seems a wee bit early, and I've seen that he's getting, is it $800,000 minimum for the next 48 months? Is that something that surprises you? That the Panthers, with all that money, just thought, yeah, let's get Matt Rule. They gave him a $60 million deal, and now he's gone. Do you think it's the right decision by the franchise?
Yes, it's to me it's overdue. He a man out of his depth for a long time, I feel, and clearly a very good college coach. But the transition from college to the NFL, there's very few who've managed to do it successfully. You've got to go back a long way. Harbaugh obviously won, conference title, went to the Super Bowl, but the vast majority of guys that come over directly from the college game to become head coaches struggle, and Matt Rule certainly has, and not helped by obviously the QB situation in some ways, but equally we'll probably get to talk about the NFC East and the way in which the teams there are making the most of their QB situations. So to me, I think obviously this was an interesting one because the Giants were very interested in Matt Rule at the time. David Tepper, with his money, went out and camped out down in Texas and secured him. He was seen, obviously, as a guy who could rebuild the program, but it never got off the ground. He fired his offensive coordinator, but never ever enjoyed success. I would love to, be told to, pack up my office and be paid 40 million for sitting at home on the couch. I think he be interesting to see if he takes any time out, but he's going to be, in a college job if he wants it. He is a very successful college coach, but I think his time at the NFL level is over.
Brian, let's not talk just yet on terms of replacements, but even just your reaction to the news that the Panthers have fired Matt Rule. Is the GM trying to save his bacon, even though the Baker is in trouble for a couple of weeks with an injury? That was a really, really poor game yesterday. I watched the end of it.
It doesn't surprise me with Baker Mayfield. Michael, I've made my feelings very clear on this show for the past 18 months, 2 years, that for me, he's not NFL level. They've been taking a punt, they've taken a flyer, hoping that he would come back to his form, which we saw initially when he went to Browns has materialised. I do agree with Colin, it was inevitable that was going to happen, and no, I think the timing is quite right, because whilst they probably won't have a great season, there's still an opportunity to turn things around, to have a reasonably good season. Teddy Bridgewater, Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield, 3 quarterbacks that's Matt Rule's had to play with. I mean, he hasn't been dealt a good hand. Like Scott Fitter, the GM, is the guy that's brought all these quarterbacks in, and his name doesn't seem to be up in lights in terms of someone that they're looking to move away from. So that, to me, is a little bit of a surprise. Maybe he'll see the door, or be shown the door come the end of the season. I was thinking about it this evening. If and I'm not saying Justin Fields is the answer, but sometimes a quarterback goes into a better organisation with a better situation, and they might be a bit more successful. They picked J.C. Horn in the 8th pick of the 2021 draft, when everybody felt that Justin Fields could be a potential quarterback in play there. Like, should they have not? Would that have saved his job? I mean, he's been dealt a bit of a bad hand. Defensively, they've been good, but defensively, you can only keep you engaged for so long. We saw it last night. They couldn't. And McCaffrey's had injuries. I mean, there's just so many things that have gone against him, unfortunately, but it was inevitable. And the contract, the contract was given to stop him going to the Giants at the time. Colin was right. It was Matt Rule or Joe Judge, and it looked like Matt Rule was due to fly up that day to New York, and Tepper stepped in with the big contract, and that was it. But inevitable. I also see Steve Wilkes is going to take over. So a lot of Cardinals fans, there might be a difference of opinion on this, felt that he should have been given more time than the 1 year in Arizona. He has an opportunity now to rebuild his career as a head coach, albeit maybe for a small period of time, but it's certainly an opportunity to try win the owner over and get the job full time in the long run.
Colin, the New Orleans Saints have the rights to Sean Payton's contract for the next 2 seasons until 2024. I'm not even going to speculate that Sean Payton would take over, and especially when you've got a divisional rival there with the Carolina Panthers. Do you see any sort of short term or somebody that fits in immediately for that job? Your favourite, maybe Vic Fangio, is available. I know he's currently helping the Eagles, and that's helping them out at the minute, which we'll talk about in a bit. But I can't think of someone that stands out right now. And obviously, Colin mentioned Steve Wilkes there.
I don't think they'll go for perhaps a quick appointment. Look, Sean Payton is obviously going to probably be the standout candidate for anyone, but prying him from the Saints is going to be, what exactly are they going to look for? I think the most immediate thing for the Panthers is whether there will be a fire sale on some of their players, because this is the team who have, I think, is it 3 or 4 picks in next year's draft, and so they need to acquire some draft capital. Already been talked today that they're receiving calls for DJ Moore, for Brian Burns, and that is something that they might look to do. I would imagine they're probably going to take stock and see. I can't imagine that Tepper is going to want to rush into an appointment unless, Sean Payton makes it clear that this is what he wants. But I think Sean Payton might well sit on his hands, because I think he will have his choice of jobs. And we all know that very few teams decide to make a move during the season. It's usually at the end of the season when teams obviously move on from their head coaches. So I imagine somebody like Sean Payton is going to wait to see what other opportunities may emerge before deciding what he might do.
What's your thoughts, Brian, on this possible replacement or the next head coach of the Carolina Panthers?
I agree with Colin, but I'd put another little bit of a slant on it. There'll be head coaches come January that will be shown the door elsewhere for one reason or another, who are probably very good coaches in the league. We saw Brian Flores, for example, was a surprise at the time. Obviously, as things have played out in Miami, it's become a bit more transparent around. There was a clear disconnect between him and the ownership. But a coach like him or someone else in the league who people won't expect to be shown the door at the end of the season will be inevitably, because that's Black Monday in the NFL, and they may look at this and go, there's no point in us going in and getting a coach now when there's someone there who's had head coaching experience. We can rely on him for the remainder of the season and see where we're at come January, when the likelihood is to be 6 or 7 coaches available, and Sean Payton is going to be in the half for every job. I don't think Sean Payton would go near this job, to be honest. I think it's too much of a rebuild for Sean. I think he'd be looking for someone looking for a team that would be in a prime for a real run, in terms of having a strong season next year. And that's why I don't think he'd be. And then again, it's the divisional factor. For me, it's a non-runner. Can't see him in Carolina at all.
I can't see him in Carolina either, and I personally think that the GM will be out by the end of the year as well. Just not good to watch. It's funny because they had a few glimmers at the start of the season where okay, people thought there would be people thought that they may have a slight chance, especially in the division that they were in. There was a lot of question marks around the other teams, but it hasn't happened. It's not going to happen, and that's why I was surprised. I thought they were going to give it a few more weeks, but that is our reaction, I guess. And there was a lot of Panthers fans, a lot of fans in that division in Ireland that are maybe either not surprised or surprised by this news. So that is our reaction to the firing this afternoon of Matt Rule, who will most likely get a $80 or $90 million. I'm only joking. He'll get a decent deal in college football, and he'll be happy enough, and he'll probably laugh all the way to the bank and never come back into the NFL. Okay, so just folks, we're going to talk now about the London game yesterday. It was a really, really good game. The Giants getting the victory over the Packers, a really fantastic performance on the defense column from the Giants at the end of that game. More so as well, Daniel Jones late in the third, early in the fourth, a couple of really, really good drives. Saquon had a big burst as well. Is it fair to say that the Packers offensively were, and that's not like the Giants had a very, very good performance. I have to give it to them. They were excellent. But Aaron Rodgers to stand at the podium yesterday and try and defend some of the plays that they made, some of the calls that were made on 3rd and 2, 4th and 2 as well towards the end. I think the offense, it just hasn't clicked. And you thought at one point in the first half that they were going to maybe fire away or blow away, and I don't think you'd be blamed for thinking like that. But the Giants, to be fair to them, came back in second half and beat the Packers, and what seemed like a Packers home game at the start suddenly turned into a home game in MetLife. Brian Dable shouting, screaming. Really, really good game. Great atmosphere, great people, great crack in the airport as well last night. But has London peaked, Colin? Do you think that's it? In terms of, because it's a full stat, I just find it hard to see how we're ever going to get a game with as much je ne sais quoi.
Well, who knows? I mean, obviously, look, the Packers coming over, 32nd team to do it, the last team to come across, Aaron Rodgers, etc. But who knows? Given the way in which the NFL is going, we might see reigning NFL Super Bowl champions at some point. So it's tough to know if it's peaked, but certainly, obviously, the reaction of Packers fans, the number of them there was very impressive yesterday. But in terms of the game and what happened, I think the Giants have to be commended for that goal line stand at the end, right? Because they were smart in terms of what they did. They let the edge guys try to get, and the safety tried to get to Aaron Rodgers, but the interior guys just looked to get their hands up to block the pass. And that they managed to bat the two of them down. So there weren't guys, playing hero ball, trying to get their name in lights. And I think that's a testament to what Brian Dable is doing there. Front runner for Coach of the Year at the moment. Look, we're through 5 weeks. Who knows where it'll end? But I saw Lawrence Tynes tweeting earlier, highlighting the fact that the adjustments, and we saw that yesterday, the adjustments that the Giants make in the second half. So the Giants have been outscored 51-36 in the first half. In the second half, though, they have outscored opponents 70-39. And the fourth quarter, they've outscored their opponents 34-15. So that's a really strong sign of a team. They are, who knows what the rest of the season will hold. And look, right now, they are certainly greater than the sum of their parts. You see some of the guys who've had to step up, and it was talked about yesterday at the podium, the guys who've had to come in. But it's a testament to the work that the coaches are doing there. And we heard that referred to time and again at the podium yesterday. The assistants, the OC, the DC, how everyone is involved. So you'd have to say that yeah, certainly. I think there were a couple of times during the first half, and Mercedes Lewis's touchdown, it just looks so easy. But the Giants responded, and they completely shut down the Packers in that second half. And the ability to take time off the clock as well was really impressive.
Brian, it was a very memorable day for Giants fans, including yourself. The thing that really impressed me was the offensive performance, as I said, the column there in the second half. How did you feel at the half? Because I really felt with like 4 or 5 minutes in the second that the Packers were going to pull away. Going beyond that as well, to have Romeo Doubs, Christian Watson, Randall Cobb, to name a few, for a quarterback like Aaron Rodgers, who got his way, got his big money payday for Matt LaFleur. I don't know how they can look themselves in the mirror, because their offense was poor, to say the least, in the second half. But defense stands up as well for the Giants. It does as much a job as well. And you got to question some decisions by Green Bay, but all New York had to do was go out. And I think if you go out every week and get 27 points, more times more than the others, you're going to have a good chance in getting the win.
Yeah, you're right, Michael. Like, you asked how it felt at half time. I was relieved at half time that we were only down by a touchdown, because essentially we didn't play for large parts of the first half. The game plan was quite simple. Try to keep with this team. Like, you're right, the offense hasn't been expansive for Green Bay as what we saw last year, but like when it was 17-3, sorry, everybody felt the game was going to go away from the Giants, but they held in there and they had that big significant drive. Like Collins touched on Wick Martindale, so I'm going to flip it to the offense coordinator for the Giants. Kafka, brought in from the Chiefs. He was the quarterback coach with Mahomes. The offense is more expansive. The play calling is significant. We're seeing more of this wildcat play. And I was looking at it this morning, and the first 2 drives, the Giants were 2-0. They didn't even get a first down on both drives. After that, it was field goal, touchdown, touchdown. His play calling for me was to be commended. And Brian Dable, everybody assumed when he came in, he'd be the one doing the play calling. He was very open from day one, saying Kafka will call the plays on the game day. I will just oversee everything that's going on because I'm here to be the coach. And we've had this conversation, not just around the Broncos, but other teams in the league over the course of 2 years, that sometimes a coach is better off coaching and leave his coordinators to get on with it, because there's too much responsibility on game day. It's great to see. And it was a common theme coming through, as Colin said. Everybody consistently talking about all the background staff, all the coaching staff. It's not just about Brian Dable. Defensively, they shut them down in the second half. And the only score they got in the second half was the safety at the end, which was to kill time. They had one opportunity where they got into field goal range, and that was the most significant play for me in the second half, because that's when they sacked Rodgers for the first time. They lost out on field goal range at a pivotal time in the third quarter, and they had to punt. The Giants had 6 incomplete passes throughout the course of the entire game. The Rodgers had 14. I thought some of Rodgers' throws were well off yesterday at times, over floating the wide receivers. He didn't, for me, have the greatest of games. Even in the first half, he didn't. For me, he just doesn't. He doesn't look like the guy that we're used to seeing. But as you can imagine, from a Giants fan and all the Giants fans that we saw at the end, it seems like, it feels like a significant moment. But we've all been here with our own teams in the course of the NFL. It only takes 1 week before you're brought back down to earth. But people up to now have said the Giants are 3-1. They haven't played anybody. Well, whether we think this Packers team are in it for the long haul this season, they're still a very good side, and to get out of there yesterday with a win of them, and the collaborative performance by the entirety of the team, bearing in mind, as Colin said, the players in which they have aren't stand out in this league. It's a huge, and for Giants fans who haven't had a lot to embrace and enjoy over the past 10 years, it's probably one of the best wins we've had for quite a long time.
Giants schedule, very, very favourable, column going into the next few weeks. Cowboys play the Eagles this week, so we'll round up the show now and just say Brian's picking the Cowboys on the Thursday night broadcast. In all seriousness though, column, yeah, it's a funny time because the Commanders are useless, but the rest of the NFC East have got winning records, and how times can change.
Yeah, and change very quickly, and I suppose also testament again to the parity of the league and everything that the league tries to do. When we were watching the game yesterday, and Nathan Johns from the Irish Times was in the press box beside me, and he said, kind of as soon as the Giants got the ball back, will they maybe run go for a safety here. And we were talking about that at the time and kind of the back and forth on that. And I saw a tweet from Gary Myers where he was had a chat with Bill Parcells, and Parcells said he was screaming at the TV for Dable and the coaching staff to take the safety. So when somebody like Bill Parcells is screaming for it, and given the end of game decisions and the clock management decisions that we've seen in the league this year, it proved to be the right call in the end. And that's, I think, what's interesting when you look at it. Sometimes the straightforward call is not always the one. And sometimes it works in your favor, sometimes it doesn't. But given how well the Giants were defending, it made a lot of sense to take more time off the clock and give Rodgers less time. But yeah, I mean, you'd have to say you look around the NFC East, and obviously look the Eagles. There's no obvious flaw there. For the Giants, they're playing incredibly well for Brian Dable, and for the Cowboys, we'll get to them, I think, in a little bit. But you'd have to be impressed by a team that has beaten both of last year's Super Bowl teams, so far this season.
I can confirm the Cowboys are not on a quick fire discussion. Brian, just to wrap up this game, Giants currently unbeaten in London as it stands. For the Green Bay fans that are listening, because I've seen so many in the airport yesterday. I had mates that flew from Belfast as well, said that Belfast was full of Green Bay fans. I'm not, obviously loads of Giants fans as well. Do you think Mark Murphy will want to get back quickly and experience a win, or do you think that could be it for a while? I
think that depends on. Well, it's going to come around the scenario when they're the 9th team. It's always going to be now, when you have your 9th home game. I think they'll be keen to come back without Rodgers. Excuse me, as the quarterback. By the time they return, it is probably a different conversation. But I think they will be, whilst they didn't win the game, I think they will be very impressed by how the course of the 3 or 4 days went for them in terms of the fan support, all the engagement that went on. And yesterday, for the first half, you would say it was like a home game for the Packers, but as the game transpired, it didn't really turn out that way because there was quite a number of Giants fans there. Packers are always going to be a great draw. Like, even no matter who they're playing up against, they're always going to have the fans, whether it's UK or in Europe. So I do think they'll be back sooner than the 7 year, which is kind of the ruling now that you go once every 7 years. I think we might find the Packers back. Maybe they'll come back as their road team as opposed to giving up a game in Lambeau.
You could be retired the time they come back.
I'll
7 years.
I'll definitely be.
It's going to be interesting. Okay, let's jump on the other game. The other game we're going to talk about in this segment, folks, for this podcast is a big win for the Chargers, 30-28 against the Browns. Browns miss a final second field goal to win the game. Let's jump on it now. I don't know if it was like the 35-yard line or like the 40-yard line. I haven't got it on me right now. But Brandon Staley at, was it 4th and 2? Went for it, and it's just funny because Colin, the analytics on ESPN stated that he was right to go for it. That's literally what it says on the analytics. However, I think we all know that he's a madman, and it genuinely seems as if the analytics said to him, go and take Justin Herbert out and put the kicker on a quarterback, he'd do it. Maybe he's very involved in the decision-making process in his job. Lucky for him, he's playing the Broncos next week, so they get over the line and he looks like the good guy because they win the game. But you would think in that situation you would just punt the ball, or are you that confident in your team and in your offense at that point?
Well, look, the analytics would say go for it, and that makes sense in ways. But the Chargers have proven time and again that they don't have the personnel, and they haven't been good at going for it. So it's all very well if you have the personnel to go out and do it, and you're rolling and you can. But to me, the biggest issue, I suppose, is that they haven't been doing it, and yet he keeps going for it, and that is the frustration. I think you'll see that amongst some Chargers fans as well. It kind of get out of jail free card. I did see a great tweet from Big Pappy, who said the Chargers tried so hard to Charger this, but the Browns browned even harder. and that kind of summed it up. It was a get out of jail free card for Staley and the Chargers, and I can only imagine some of the decisions that we are going to see on Monday Night Football next week.
He's the cleverest head coach in the league, Michael. I've been saying it for the last year and a half.
You've been very not down, but you were very critical or constructive of his decision making over the last few weeks. So I was intrigued to hear your thoughts on it. I think, Brian, when you've got I'll get your point here now. I think when you got a quarterback as talented as Herbert, you want to be able to protect him and not have him on the field in that sort of situation as well. I just didn't get the play, and I'll hold my hands up. I didn't get that. Like, why would you go for it there with the clock? Believe in your defense. Get the ball back.
Agree with you, Michael. Absolutely, 100%. Can't argue in any way. 4th and 3 with 1:13 left on their 46-yard line. He said after the game, I took the time out to watch his press conference today because I love how he antagonised me every week. So nothing better on a Monday than seeing Brandon Staley annoy me. I was having too good of a day. I said that someone's going to have to annoy me. So I said I went and watched his press conference, and he said he had all the faith in the world in his defense, and they did what was asked of them, and they stopped the Browns from scoring. They didn't stop the Browns from scoring. The Browns stopped themselves from scoring. They got into position to win the game, and they missed the field goal. So he says that he came out and saying, I trust my defense. My defense did what was expected of them, and we won the game. No, the Browns still got an opportunity to win the game. So he's wrong there. And if he trusts his defense like he does, well then why wouldn't you punt the ball and let them start at their own 20 or whatever it is, give or take, depending on where the punt goes. So if you have that much faith in your defense, let them drive 60 yards as opposed to only having to drive 17 yards to get into field goal range. So he's wrong there. Keenan Allen tweeted after that play, WTF, what the hell are we doing? So he didn't have any faith in what the decision that was being called by his own coach, because obviously he's at home watching it because he's out injured. So look, they got away. There was three key plays in the game, 3 key situations. The Browns had a really long drive before halftime. They missed the field goal. They're in the red zone. Jacoby Brissett chose an interception in the red zone, and then obviously the game-winning field goal that doesn't go over. The rookie kicker, who me and Colin were actually only talking about yesterday, how impressed we've been with him, had a bad day. They got away with it, in my opinion. They may not get away with it next Monday. I know we've had a conversation yesterday about the good and bad of Denver right now, but this game for me is a toss-up next week. I wouldn't be as confident as everybody is on this Chargers team at the moment, to be honest, especially with that head coach.
Let's see what happens. We'll talk about that later on this week in our preview. If you want to get some comments in, folks, just search Irish NFL Show on YouTube. And if you're listening to the podcast, this is the end of the segment. Thanks very much. Well, you know the Eagles are good when our senior producer, Mr. O'Leary, puts them 3rd in the list this week. This is good. We're getting up there now. Eagles definitely win a tight one, Brian, in Arizona. 20-17. Cards missed a late field goal to put the game to overtime. Cardinals should have scored in that drive. They were really getting... Well, Kyler Murray was like Tim Tebow in that last drive. Oh, I'll just run. Man, the thing that was surprised me though, Brian, or Colin, is Jalen Hurts, I think going by the next gen stats, did not throw the ball in the midfield once, or if it was under 2 or 3 times in the game. He's exploiting the sides. He's not like that could be something to look at going down the stretch. But look, the Eagles moved to 5-0. If they beat the Cowboys next week, I mean, wow, they open up a lead in that division, to say the least. But they get the job done against Arizona. I did think they scored more points, but it was an interesting game to listen to or watch on the motorway back last night.
Like he has been, I suppose, much more successful in terms of utilizing the middle of the field this year, and that was the criticism that has been leveled against him. Arizona did their best to take that away a little bit yesterday, but in terms of the Cardinals offense, if their 4th quarter offense was present for the entirety of the game, their record could look significantly different. They seem to come to life only in the 4th quarter. A couple of things probably stood out for me. The fact, though, that they had to go to a silent count in their home stadium is never a good sign. And look, the kicker who ultimately missed the kick, I was very impressed by Justin Pugh, because Matt Amendola has had a tough few weeks. I would say to all of the teams out there, there's an Irishman on the practice squad in Jacksonville who has proved, he can kick. So maybe give him a call. But in fairness to Justin Pugh, who has been around the league for a little while, he stepped up and he, said to the media members that it couldn't just be put on the kicker, that every single member of the Cards who had taken to the field had played a part in the defeat, and it was really unfair to put it all on Amendola. So I thought that was really good leadership. And the Cards are another week closer to getting Hopkins back, which I think they will be delighted about. But yeah, we've got to see more on offense from them through the first half.
Brian, decent end of the game. Kyler Murray looking like a highlighter, actually wearing the same colour that Colum's wearing right now. God, that was good timing. Didn't expect that. On another day, it didn't happen, but on another day, that Eagles team would have been exploited, that last drive. I just didn't get the decision making by the Cardinals, especially by Cliff Kingsbury with that last, was it minute and 40? It was just strange, but the Eagles get over the line, win again.
There was a lot of confusion on that last drive, Michael. I'm going to come to it now on that particular play. First of all, so the Eagles, to me, we watched a bit of this on the way home. It looked to me like the Eagles were comfortable. They're 14 up. Jalen Hurts had 2 touchdowns. The Cards battled back, which is to the point Colin makes, in terms of they seem to be playing better in the second half of these games, or even into the fourth. The last drive, Kyler Murray, in particular, we're going to home in on this play, right? So he goes, it's 3rd and 10, it's 2nd and 10, right? And he runs and he slides. First of all, I felt he could have got the first down if he had a more battle-hardened quarterback would have been throwing their head in there, as we see with other quarterbacks, and that can be good, that can be bad. Like Tyrod Taylor last week got a concussion because he stuck his head in to get a first down. I felt Murray could have done a little bit more to get the first down. Then in the stadium, they announced it as first down. So Kingsbury said in the radio set, they were saying that the instruction to Murray was spike the ball, because they thought it was first down. And the Eagles are saying, no, we knew it was 3rd and 1. So there was a disconnect there. The stadium announcer was saying it's a first down for the Cardinals. Kingsbury then said spike the ball because he assumed it was a first down. That's a disaster in itself. So that completely threw the whole situation off. He was short, having looked at it again, Stephen. But I felt he should have done more to get the first down. Maybe that would have put them in a position potentially to at least have an opportunity to go at the end zone. And also maybe a shorter field goal for a kicker. And Justin Pugh used to play for the Giants, and he seems like a really good guy. And I suppose he's commended for showing support to the kicker. But the reality, this kicker struggled with the Jets last year. For people who don't know, he was the Chiefs kicker only a couple of weeks ago when they played in Indianapolis, and he missed 2 field goals. So he's coming into the Cardinals already with the pressure on, having had a difficult few weeks. And if you don't know, you saw the snippet where they showed 3 field goals in the practice leading up to the game in the warm-up, all in the range of 47 yards, and he hooked all 3 of them to the right, and he hooks the one from 47 at the end of the game to put it into overtime. So as much as Pugh can defend him, the reality is he obviously isn't at the level. And maybe Colin's right. Maybe some of these practice squad kickers should be getting the work, because doesn't seem to be doing the job. If Murray had a ran, in my opinion, better in that situation, and understanding where they were, he would have got a first down. He got a little bit closer, an opportunity to win the game, and certainly then at least get into overtime. Cards have come up short. Eagles, big game next week. I think next week one really is a cracking game ahead of us next Sunday Night Football, because the Cowboys are certainly going in the right direction as well.
Looking forward to talking about the Cowboys in a minute. Let's talk about the Jets beating the Dolphins. Feel like an idiot not picking the Jets now. Want to apologise to the Jets fans either watching this broadcast or listening back in the podcast. I was on the fence, but before you throw metaphorical stones at me, I did pick the Jets. Was it last week or the week? Yeah. Anyway, Teddy Bridgewater concussed. Backup comes in. Call him Jets 2 in a row. Take away the concussion situation. They still put 40 points up. The quarterback doesn't play defense. Last time I checked. So well done to the Jets. The Dolphins, I'm intrigued to see when Tua comes back. Genuinely, I really am. I know they'll probably say I'll be back next week. Until he steps out in that field, I remain to be convinced.
Well, look, I think for the Jets, they were very impressive yesterday, and their young players in particular. Elijah Vera Tucker has played kind of all over that offensive line and has done really, really well. Breece Hall has been impressive. Sauce Gardner has been impressive, and they have responded after probably a tough kind of opening. So you would have to be kind of pleased for Salah and for that organization. And they were on a run of divisional defeats. So it's great to see them get the win. There'll probably be some Dolphins fans who'll say, well, we were really banged up, but yeah, it was. So were the Bills when they played you. Like, you can only go, there'll always be injuries, right? That's just the reality of this league. And as we're seeing, we talked about with the Giants, guys step up. That's what you need guys to do. So I think it will be interesting to see how things play out in the East, right? Because the Patriots got a win. The Bills look like they're in the, they right now, and you never know when January rolls around, but right now the Bills are the best team, I would say, in football. And apparently they're looking to acquire Christian McCaffrey to give them a run game, which would be very interesting if that were to come to pass. But the rest of the East is going to look at it and say, well, why not? We're competitive, and everybody in the AFC is going to take wins off each other because it is super competitive. But pleased for the Jets, and I don't think it was a fluke. I think they, should look to build on this. I don't think there, and nobody's expecting them to make a deep playoff run, but they're making progress under Salah, which is exactly what you want, and you want to see those young players develop, which is exactly what we are seeing.
An OC in LaFleur and a young coach in Salah. It shows, I think, in the New York market, Brian, if you change things up, give people time, allow for things to grow, it does work, and it's definitely working in the Jets' favour. Like this injury to Zach Wilson in the preseason, everyone wrote them off for the year, and look at them now. Fair play to them, and a great win for them yesterday.
Yeah, we did say in our season preview show, Michael, that they have brought in some really, really strong players, and they certainly look like they're going in the right direction. But again, it's go out in the field and prove it. And the last 2 weeks, in particular the fourth quarter, like last week there was 14 unanswered points by them to go in to Pittsburgh and win. And then 21 unanswered points in the fourth quarter yesterday, having Miami rallied to get back to 19-17 down. Games in the past with this Jets team, you say, oh, here we go again, the Jets are going to find a way to throw this game away. 21 unanswered points in the fourth quarter to put the game away. I can't recall the last time the Jets put up 40 points. The game for Miami was very difficult from the very first play. I mean, they give away a safety in the very first play of the game. They lose Bridgewater to a concussion and an elbow injury. And it doesn't look like Tua's going to be returning next week either. So we're going to have this third string quarterback play for them. Things have quickly changed for this Miami team. The Miami defense played well for large parts, but the reality is, unless the offense is playing really well, it can only hold in games for so long. And Tyreek Hill is also, by all accounts, left in a boot yesterday, and he's injured, and he's doubtful for next weekend. For the Jets, it's a great win. We touched on it on the show the other day. The Jets have had these little wins throughout the course of the years, like last year when they beat the Bengals at home, and you've got to follow up with a big win. They did that, like they beat Miami in the division, and here, look really realistic. It is the Bills' division, but the Bills are playing the Chiefs this weekend in Arrowhead. That game can go either way. If the Chiefs, that's a toss-up. It'll be interesting to see how the picks go on Thursday on that game. But say for argument's sake, the Jets were to win 3 in a row, and the Bills don't win this weekend, they're both tied at 4-2. You could have the Dolphins winning this weekend at 4-2, and you could have the Patriots potentially winning this weekend, going 3-3. It's a tight division. Obviously, in reality, is Bills and not likelihood will pull away at some stage. But right now, they'll feel they're in the hunt, and maybe that's the way Salah needs to play it. The same as the way which David is. We just play to our strengths, and then the results will take care of themselves.
Let's see what happens. Obviously, well done to the Jets fans. Hard luck to a lot of Dolphins fans in Ireland, and people listening. Hard luck, lads. We'll go again next week. I didn't watch Sunday Night Football because, unlike used to buckos, I had to drive 100 odd miles up the road. And shout out to everyone living in NI, because just the drive, lads, is no bueno. I seen the game in 40 this morning. I picked the Bengals to win. It was a close enough game, 19-17. Ravens get the win. Justin Tucker is money column, and I really feel that from watching it back, if that hadn't happened last night at the end, and the Bengals had to go over the line, I just think the chats in Baltimore would have been very interesting. I know Coach Harbour signed an extension. I know there's a lot of optimism. A lot of people like him. Lamar Jackson is currently holding his own fort contract-wise. But it was a big win for them over the Bengals. It would have been a very, genuinely, I think it would have been a very, very difficult or different discussion to be had if they had lost that game based on the start of the season Cincinnati had had. And also going on in the league yesterday when the Steelers were beat, the Browns were beat. Big win for a team that needed a win as well.
Yeah, but I suppose that's what kind of these divisional games are. I mean, if it was the Premier League, we'd call them 6-pointers because everything kind of hinges on them. And the Bengals are a good side. You could argue that, maybe Zach Taylor needs to look at the offensive play calling and the tells that they have because last night it was obvious in terms of if Mixon was standing up, they were, going to run it. And if he was hunched over, it was going to be pass play. And that, I think, possibly became very obvious to the opposing defense as well. But for the Ravens, the thing is, and for any team that the Ravens are playing, if you are a point or two up or three up, and Justin Tucker walks out, your heart must sink because he is absolutely phenomenal. Like every single stat. Like the thing with kickers is they're so up and down. And you see sometimes, somebody might have a really good year, but it's very difficult for them to follow it up. And Tucker is the exception to that rule. Around the NFL tweeted earlier saying, Tucker has made 61 straight field goals in the fourth quarter and overtime. He's the only kicker since 2000 to be perfect, 23 of 23 field goals in the final minute of the fourth quarter or overtime. It's just stunning. He's absolutely money, and I'm sure some people may have, and if you haven't heard it, the field goal apparently was so straight down the middle that if the uprights had only been 18 inches apart, it still would have gone through. To have that in your arsenal, as long as the Ravens manage to make it to the dance, that is a serious weapon.
Brian, I seen Mina Kimes tweeted that we should put maybe a different thing through the net to get more points if you hit it that well. Justin Tucker is money, isn't he? He's like fantasy god as well. He's so reliable.
Fantastic. He's fantastic. And maybe Zach Taylor needs to recognise who the kicker is on the other side. Colin has matched it up perfectly for me. He says it's like a 6-pointer in the Premiership. Yeah, it's a 6-pointer. This is the 6-point scenario. 2:48 to go in the third quarter. Good old Zach Taylor. Rocks up. Mr. Head Coach of the Year caliber, as usual, with his analytic stats and all the gobbledygook that goes. Play the game instead of playing your stats. He takes a field goal there. The game is tied up. They go for it on 4th and 2. They don't get it. What happens? The Ravens drive down, and I know it's a field goal and not a touchdown, but it's the significance of the situation. The Ravens drive down, and they have a 4th and inches, similar scenario. And then I think Harbour learns from his mistakes last week, where he went for it against the Bills and didn't get it. He takes the field goal this week. They go up by 6. The way the game plays out, then they end up winning it by 2. The longest play of the game for the Bengals offense was 33-yard reception to Chase, I believe. They weren't moving the ball like we've seen in other games. So he should be recognising those type of situations where when there's points on the table, you got to take them. And their kicker is solid as well. Let's be fair. McPherson, he's been brilliant since he came into the league. That would have tied the game up. I'm not saying he would have won, but just some of the play calling and some of the decisions by some of these head coaches is baffling. And it obviously seems to come from these guys who are the younger type of head coach coming into the league and think that they know it all, and they find themselves in situations where it doesn't work out. I just felt in the game was so tight. Those 3 points in the end would have been significant potentially.
Yeah, the thing for me was funny was Joe Burrow was saying about how if defenses keep playing like that, he's not going to get the ball down the field. I mean, he was 4.5 minutes from winning the Super Bowl last year, so that's an interesting thing to say. Hope it works out for him. Love the Bengals. Up the Bengals. But well done to the Ravens. Saints last night, TSM Hill, 3, am I right in thinking 3 rushing touchdowns, 1 pass touchdown? 39-32 victory. He only had 10 carries, Colin. TSM Hill had 10 carries yesterday, and he's officially listed as a tight end. I love it. I think it's great. But at what point are teams going to get the hang of this? Because as good as he was yesterday, I mean, just prepare to play him. Prepare to face him. It seems like every week teams go in and just don't. Like, I don't know. Like, every other team, look at Pittsburgh, right? Pittsburgh lose Big Ben. They're struggling in the quarterback position. The Patriots lost Brady. They haven't had an answer since, realistically. And we can have a discussion about it at some point. Drew Brees leaves the Saints, and they've got a guy like this who's listed as a tight end, running like a horse. It's working out for them, but how long is this whole charade going to last? Any word on the injury to the rookie wide receiver also? Because that was a really, really bad hit yesterday.
Well, you're asking how long it'll last, but he's been around a long time. I think the charade was when he was listed as a QB. I think listing him probably as a tight end makes more sense, but he's more than that. And in fairness, I'm sure Sean Payton will have enjoyed that yesterday because, yes, you mentioned the 3 rushing touchdowns, the 1 passing touchdowns. He had a fumble recovery. He had 112 yards rushing. He had 69 kickoff return yards.
Mad.
Like this is a guy who plays kind of you can just line him up there, and obviously he started as a QB, but like he's built like the proverbial brick house, and you can teams, I suppose they do, I'm sure they do try to scheme against him, but he finds a way. And like even yesterday on the breakaway touchdown, the Seahawk, the guy catches up with him, but Hill is just so strong that he carries him through. And to have that kind of gadget player and to be able to bring him in, and it worked yesterday in terms of kind of bringing him in when they needed to bring him in for Andy Dalton. And I thought that was a good win. It was a win that the Saints needed because they've been really poor in the Superdome, really, really poor at home. So they had to get that right. They did get it right yesterday. The Seahawks, very impressive on offense, and in fairness to them and to Geno, they looked really, really good. The Seahawks fans will always tell you that the Seahawks can never play a normal game, and so it is proving throughout this season as well. But some of Geno's passes yesterday were magnificent.
Brian, not just a good performance for the Saints after last week in London. I mean, why do we even need a bye week now with the whole London thing? I mean, they proved that yesterday. A fun performance for the neutral.
A very explosive game, Michael. This is the new Seattle. Maybe it's the new Saints as well. Like Seattle, we've seen in the week last week when they won in Detroit, and we saw the game against Atlanta. Their defense, we spoke about it in the off season. Like their defense isn't what it was of old, and they will give up points. We're going to see this. We're going to see this Seattle team in high scoring games, and for parts, yes, they look like they might have got over the line. In a league where we talk about trades all the time, Taysom Hill is the jack of all trades, essentially. He can play in so many positions in this league. And he had a quiet game last week in London. Like, I noticed that last week he was champing at the bit to come in time and time again to the offensive coordinator, and they weren't putting him in. He had that one touchdown in the fourth quarter in London, but he didn't have a lot of plays. I don't know whether it's become they recognise in which the team they're playing when they're soft, and they say, you know what, this is the game for him. He'll be elusive. He was very impressive yesterday, as was Geno. I love the message that we put up on last night around now we're discussing who is the winner of this trade. I mean, it's so early to be discussing that, but right now you would say Seattle would be good, but I still don't think Geno Smith is the answer in the long run. I think he's too rapid.
Who tweeted out last night? Because I want to have a very good discussion with
it. Certainly wasn't me.
Was it Mr. Hoagie?
Mark Cockrell. It is very early. But
Colin, Mark's been very anti Broncos in the show. He's been called out in comments live as well. I can't wait till he comes back on this at some point before Halloween. So very, very anti. So
the only it is very early. The only thing you would say is Geno Smith has absolutely exceeded expectations, and the Seahawks offense has absolutely exceeded expectations. Obviously, Penny getting the injury But the rookie running back has been impressive, so it's going to be a case of, next man up.
Right, let's look at the next man up. The Cowboys column look really, really good. Two elements here for me. 22-10 victory. Rams, really, really poor yesterday. Again, their offense is not clicking. Another team, but like Green Bay, they just can't get their offense to click for the full 4 quarters. It's the second time, I think, that McVay has been under 500 in his career with the Rams. It's the first time he's been under 500 this far into the season, even the 5 weeks. I personally feel, Colin, that the Rams have got issues that are not going to be fixed soon. It's a pity for them because the NFC is not great. The Cowboys, on the other hand, they're crazy if they start Dak Prescott on Sunday, because Cooper Rush is clearly, at the minute, for the next 2 or 3 weeks, the answer here. Let Dak Prescott get fully healed, not Jerry Jones healed at 45 to 60%. Allow him. I understand the importance of this game against the Eagles at the weekend and the significance that it has, because the Eagles have looked very good and they're unbeaten. Nobody fought, and Jerry Jones can say whatever the hell he thinks. Nobody, including him, gave them a chance after the first game of the season to be in this position. I just think it's right to stay with Cooper Rush. I don't see the point in bringing Dak Prescott in for this game at the weekend. Am I mad? Discuss.
Well, let's start with the Rams, because they definitely issues, and I think the O-line is the biggest issue. But when you consider in terms of under McVay and the points per game, so 2017 they were averaging 30 points, 2018 almost 35 points, 2019 29 points, 2020 27. Last year they're averaging 28 points a game, and this year 16 points a game. So that'll tell you. But the fact is, Stafford came into this season with an elbow injury, and now he seems to have a bit of a thumb injury, a rib injury, and he was getting absolutely battered yesterday. Dan Quinn didn't get any head coaching job. He apparently, was the favorite at one point for the Broncos. Didn't get it, but my goodness, is he putting himself out there to get a head coaching job next off season? The Cowboys' defense is absolutely relentless. It comes at you from every which angle. Matthew Stafford just didn't stand a chance yesterday. And even though I think Cooper Rush had, about 102 yards passing or something in that. I think he had 10 completions. The Cowboys looked in control of that game throughout. They never, ever looked like they were going to give it up. The Rams last year went through a period where in November they lost, and we discussed this with Kevin O'Connor, they lost 3 in a row. They bounce back. This year, it's going to take more than that, because it doesn't look right, and they do have issues to sort out. They still have Aaron Donald, and in Aaron Donald, they will always have a human wrecking ball who can come in and wreck teams. But you would have to say, given the injuries that the Cowboys have had to that O-line, I was relatively impressed. There was only kind of a couple of times where they left Aaron Donald one-on-one against the rookie, and that didn't work out so well. But apart from that, the Cowboys handled their business yesterday.
Brian, are you ready for the TikTok reel? The big question, the big clip from this week's episode. Through 5 weeks, who's the better team in LA?
Oh God, that's a tough one, Michael. The Chargers, I suppose, because they have got a winning record, and whilst they have inconsistencies, they play good football and offense. Right now, this Rams Collins, he's laid it down perfectly. Like, this offense is, I wouldn't say it's fallen off the cliff. That's probably a little bit too harsh. But is there any wonder Stafford has got all these injuries? He's getting destroyed every week. The offensive line has really tailed back from last year, and we expected it to a certain extent. We're retiring, and I can't recall the name of the right guard who left in free agency. He was a big loss as well, and they haven't replaced him at that level. We're seeing that now clearly, and they're not getting anything going on the run game. The run game is non-existent. Akers he'd have a good game one week, he'd be going missing for 3. Henderson, isn't the answer either. Sonny Michel was there last year. He went. So there's just problems on defensively this year as well. We haven't seen them play to the level in which we saw. They played complementary football last year. Yeah, the offense was putting up a lot of points, but the defense was really explosive as well. We're not seeing that this year either. If you're asking me that question, it has to be the Chargers, but the jury would be out on them as well.
Who starts the quarterback on Sunday for the Cowboys?
Cooper Rush, absolutely. Because the game has to be played in a way where they have methodical drives and they keep the Eagles' offense off the field. There's also a report this evening, which we haven't all picked up potentially, is that they don't think Dak will be ready for Sunday. They're saying he's not going to be fully fit for Sunday. Now, again, it's speculation. But even if he was fully fit, for me, this game should be played with Cooper Rush because he's got a good handle of his offense. 10 first downs in the entirety of the game. That's all they got on offense with the Cowboys. But again, they didn't have to do a lot yesterday, but they're not turning the ball over. They're playing smart football and they're using Pollard more efficiently. We spoke about him being better, than Zeke at this stage of Zeke's career. They're using him. He had a big touchdown yesterday. They're playing smart football. We're used to seeing Cowboys play explosive games and come out the right side of some, then they lose on others. That's not the Cowboys team we're seeing with this defense. The Cowboys team is run through this defense now. The offense will just play complementary football to that.
Okay, for people on the podcast, I'm sorry, but I'm fading. It's been a long 72 hours.
Can I just say I think Dak will be back in. I think Jerry will ensure Dak is back in.
I agree. I think Jerry Jones is inept, and he will ensure that he's back in because he thinks that this is America's game. The Eagles are the big boys of the NFC East. We have to beat them. Oh, I know what'll beat them. Dak Prescott, and it won't happen. The Eagles lads will be laughing if Dak Prescott comes in.
Well, this is a McCarthy situation, isn't it? Like, this really is now. Are you allowing me to coach the team, or are you coaching the team? Because
we all know who runs the books up there.
Well, we yes, of course we do, and I'm sure every Cowboys fan who watches the show would say the same thing. The game is in Philly. If it was in Dallas, I'd probably think maybe the approach would be to go with Dak, but because it's on the road, I just think they'll try Cooper Rush, methodical drives, take the crowd out of it, and then let the defense go after Hurts because, as Colin said, this defense is for real. So it'd be interesting to see how the Eagles' offense can match up against Parsons and these guys on Sunday, like Lawrence as well, and Diggs if he goes after Hurts with particular throws. It makes for a great game Sunday night. It's a really enticing game to stay up late for this weekend.
Yeah, going to be a hell Sunday Night Football. Chiefs Bills is in the late window as well. Saints Bengals in the early window as well. So some really, really good games which we'll look forward to in a few days. We're going to talk about the Vikings very quickly. The Vikings allowed the Bears to come back from a 21-point deficit. I've seen Bears fans on the internet column today talking about Justin Fields and about his potential, and he's now showing signs of growth. Okay. What I got from watching this game this morning, the highlights at the very, very least, was they're not a very good football team, and you could put prime any quarterback in there, it's not going to get them over the line. Their defense is still letting up. 29 points yesterday. That being said, the Vikings, to let the Bears back into the game with that amount of points is something that Kevin O'Connell is going to have to work on, because they come out of London last week to get the win, they get straight back over again. I'd say they'll be very disappointed with the manner of that. I wouldn't say it's embarrassing, but if they were to let that 21-point deficit go down or actually be defeated against a team of the Bears' quality at the moment, that would have been an embarrassing result for Minnesota. Would you agree with that, or do you think I'm being too harsh on Bears fans?
I think given it's a divisional game, that it always plays a role. And look, this is Minnesota. They have history of doing this. Recent history and longer term. The Vikings have there's a reason that you don't bet on the Vikings to win or to lose, because you never know what a Vikings team is capable of, and certainly in the divisional game that adds to it as well. At least we saw Justin Fields throw the ball a bit more yesterday, which they allowed him a little bit more freedom to do that. But this is a huge rebuilding project that the Bears need to undertake, and for them, I suppose they have to hope that they have the right people in charge there. for them, I really think this season, I know Brian said at the start there were Bears fans who felt that this could be a 9-win team. I don't believe that will be the case. I think this is about finding out who they should keep around and build around for the 2023 season, given the mess that they were left in under the previous GM. But certainly, I think for a lot of fans, they're going to look at this Bears team. They're going to see, right, the fact that the Giants went out, the Giants got a GM, the Giants got a head coach. They're going to say, well, why can't we do that? Well, every situation is different. And Joe Shane, Dable knew each other quite well. And Dable is coaching, incredibly well. Not everyone is going to perform that. I don't have expectations for this Bears team this year. I think the Vikings will just be happy to get a win.
Brian, we're all going to be subjected to this on Thursday night. Big shout out to all the Bears fans that are heading over to that game from Ireland. I really hope it's a good game. Please, Jesus, because I can't stand another week of that.
Look, the NFL schedule, they don't know what's going to come of it when the game is announced. People may not know it's Washington travelling into Soldier Field to take on the Bears on Thursday night, and right now it doesn't look like the most enticing game to stay up for. I just wanted to touch on the Vikings. Like we're giving Brian Dable all the kudos tonight for being coach of the year potentially, but right now Kevin O'Connell's doing a great job as well. Let's be fair. Like, this Vikings team are 4-1. The Vikings team over the course of the 3 or 4 years under Zimmer lose that game last night. That's the kind of game where they get up a big lead and they allow the Bears to come back into it, and at one stage we said, hang on, how is this game going to go? And they drove down with a significant drive at the end, and having pulled out a win last week against Saints to win a game against, albeit a team who's struggling this season, it's a significant win for them, because the Packers have lost yesterday. Kevin O'Connell needs to be commended. They're going to put up points because they've got so many great players in Jefferson, Thielen and Cook when he's on his game. The Bears, I'm with Colin, it's one of those situations they're trying to get an understanding of who's there next year and who's not there. And it'd be interesting to see what the narrative is headed towards this game, because obviously Washington have their struggles. I don't know if anybody's seen Ron Rivera's press conference in the last couple of hours where he said what's the difference between his team and all the other teams within the NFC East. He said quarterback. And they tried to push him on whether he was losing faith with Carson Wentz, and he said no, he will get better as the season goes on. It'd be interesting to see these two quarterbacks who are under pressure on Thursday, which one comes out on top. But for the Bears, it's one of those games where they probably felt they could have got a win, having come back so well and showed a bit of fight for the new head coach, but ultimately the talent prevailed in the end with his Vikings team.
Right, let's jump on a couple of games here to look at. We'll first look at the Bucs win over the Falcons. Falcons should have come back into this game and won. Colin, that call, that flag, was pretty controversial. And Tom Brady was asked about it, and he said, "Well, I don't. That's not on me. I'm just, Is this the end of Jerome Booger? There
were a huge number of poor calls in the game. Definitely in terms of non-calls and also some of the other rushing the passer calls. And yeah, look, it was ridiculous. The thing that doesn't seem to be getting talked about either is the fact that Brady kicked out. He definitely aimed a kick, which just seems to have been completely ignored. And I think the reality is that we saw there was a really bad call against in the Washington game yesterday as well, where the roughing the passer was called for a hit on Wentz that was crazy. So to me, yes, it was a bad call, and the really troubling aspect of it was the fact that the refs doubled down afterwards, right, in terms of the explanation. And I don't know if that's, referees can never admit that they got it wrong, but to say that, he used unnecessary roughness was just, it's crazy. Everyone, it was like the entirety of the internet united last night in seeing what a terrible call it was. I don't believe it cost them the game. Tom Brady seems to be destined to always beat the Falcons. But yes, it was a bad call, and the ref's explanation made it infinitely worse.
Shock and run. Flag.
That was terrible. Michael, come on. We were all together when we saw it, and we all looked at each other like, what was that? I feel for the Falcons, because having been 21-0 down, and everybody thought it was one of those games that was petering out, they came back and rallied in the fourth quarter, and they got 15 points if they went for the 2-point conversion. They would have been given an opportunity to win the game. The way the Bucs defense was slowing down in the fourth quarter, I don't know whether it was the heat or the Falcons were finding a way to figure them out. At least give them the opportunity to win the game. They'll feel very disgruntled today, the head coach will, that they weren't at least giving the ball back. And then if they don't score, they don't score, and they lose the game. But it was a bad decision. I saw a few people today on Twitter and on various different socials saying people are saying, it's Brady, the Brady factor, and he's able to get these decisions. Maybe so, but like he said, it's not on me. The decision is the decision. But anybody out there can see it was a terrible decision. You could be right. Booger might get a week off. The NFL tried to 10, but then again, the NFL have to come out and then admit it was the wrong decision, and I doubt they will. But the Bucs are struggling, to be honest. They're not playing well. And anytime they come up against a good team now, going towards the playoffs, I can't see them how they're going to win those games.
This isn't in the quick fire, but I'm going to be quick about this. I'll be very, very clear here. I was very, very impressed with Bailey Zappi. The first rookie quarterback of a win, and a 100+ passer rating in the league since Daniel Jones 3 years ago. Looks fresh. Didn't throw a pick, Colin. Didn't look poor under pressure, albeit against the Lions. Lions put up a lot of points. Defense played well for the Patriots. Hypothetically, if Zappi was going to play, I guess, for the next 2 or 3 weeks, do we have a discussion in New England in any way, shape, or form? Okay, so if Mac Jones comes back in again and starts throwing picks, do we have a discussion? Is there? I mean, it's like the lad's doing. He's done well. He done well last week in Green Bay to an extent. He done very well last night, as far as I'm concerned. He's trying his best. His stats are decent over 2 weeks there. I think it's a genuine conversation to have for the crack. Why not?
Well, we can have any conversation for the crack. We could have a conversation, will Russell Wilson be replaced by Brett Rippon? I mean, if Mac Jones is the Patriots starting QB, Zappi has come in and has done well, but the Lions defense is appalling, and the Lions fans and Lions media today wondering about Aiden Hutchinson and when he's going to begin to show signs of life. It's very early. Listen, we live in this 24-hour news media cycle. Everyone wants to talk about it, but teams aren't going to move off their starting QB, and Zappi could well become QB2, certainly, but beating the Lions is not going to somersault him for me into QB1. Look, if it were to happen, and this, if we want to talk for the crack, if it were to be that they found another Tom Brady somehow, some way, and all of a sudden he becomes it, can you imagine another 2 decades of the Patriots? No, I think Mac Jones will come back in. This was Bill Belichick, and Mark had talked about it. Mark Hockrell had said, but Belichick has the ability to get in Goff's head. That's what we saw in this game.
Yeah, Brian, I don't think Mac Jones is going to be replaced. Don't get me wrong. It's an interesting conversation to have. Zappi's done very, very well to come in. They go to Lambeau Field and to then go up against, okay, I get what comes in with the defense, but they go up against a team that's let in and has really proven people wrong so far this season with their expectations of them. He's done well. Everyone's giving Bill Belichick credit here, but Zappi has been the man for these 2 weeks as far as I'm concerned.
Well, Belichick should get all the credit, Michael, because I said it last week after the Packers game. He is coaching a team, and Mark would even say he's coaching a set of players, and whether they're winning these games or not. Played the Ravens, had an opportunity to win the game at the end. Played the Packers into overtime last week. Maybe that's not as big of an achievement as we thought. Maybe this Packers team isn't as good as we thought it. We first imagined going into the season. And I think I even said on the show Friday, I said I could see this being even a shutout. And there we go, because Dan Campbell, if Belichick's the kind of coach, if you want to lap it up and do stupid things during the game, that's fine. I'll just coach properly. Dan Campbell went for 4th down 7 times in the game and didn't get one complete one 4th down on those. So when you're doing that throughout the course of the game, you're just going to lend a hand to allow Bill Belichick to play a sensible game. And they had 52 rushing plays in the game. They kicked 5 field goals. They were just tagging on points over the course of the game, and the Lions couldn't do much thereafter. In terms of the quarterback situation, it's a nice fit for him because he has a quarterback there that will just do what's asked of him. He won't make any rash decisions, throw the ball down the field. He'll do what he's asked, play methodical football, and that suits him. And then when Mac Jones is ready, they're playing in Cleveland this weekend. That's an interesting game to see if I'm not sure where Mac Jones is in terms of his injury recovery at the moment, if he'd be back, but certainly think that's a big game this weekend, especially with Belichick and his old time in Cleveland. Certainly a game he'd be looking forward to as well.
Indeed. Let's go quick fire. 4 games to look at very, very quickly here. Texans beat the Jags. Jags very, very poor. I'm going to jump on another one. You can talk about our two. I don't even want to talk about the Texans Jags game. No harm to the crack. Kenny Pickett will get the season and a half he needs. Bills run riot over the Steelers. Interesting defensive performance. Call him the Niners. Looking good against the Panthers. Really, really good. Baker Mayfield obviously injured as well. We've talked about Matt Rule. Anything that tickled your fancy from that game or any game that I talked about there now?
A couple of the hits on Kenny Pickett were late, and but both in terms of the low hit and the one where it was a late as he was sliding and 78 went in and then realized he was on the Bills sideline. The Bills beat up on a bad team. They will learn from that. Trevor Lawrence had an awful day. I think safe to say for the Niners, the injuries continue to mount up, but that defense is scary good.
I closed it out with the Titans. Titans beat Washington. We all went for the Titans and felt they would win this game. Probably a little bit more comfortable than it was. Like the Commanders had a chance to win the game at the end, and I was looking at the stats today. The Commanders only had 1 forced down. They only got a forced down off 11 times on third down. Only got one once throughout the course of the game. And in the fourth quarter, the Titans only had 1 forced down. They only had 1 forced down in the fourth quarter. It was a game that both sides were trying to do their utmost to lose. Commanders had the chance at the end, couldn't put it over the line. I'm going to get the sense it's obvious things aren't right there, but we see Rivera today coming out and starting to be a little bit critical of the quarterback. In particular, that play at the end, which was the interception, with the game there to be won. But we saw it with other games this weekend where quarterbacks are throwing it instead of running it, and maybe they should have leaned on the new running back in Robinson, who was back playing the game. So Titans will be delighted to get out to the top of the division, but Washington will have to win this game next weekend against the Bears. Otherwise, I think Rivera will really be under pressure to hold on to his job.
Okay, let's look Monday Night Football. Quick picks. Vegas Chiefs. I was going to watch this game now. I'm thinking I might not, to be honest with you. Do you know what? Mark Cockrell's not here. I'm presuming Mark's picking the Chiefs. Somebody tell me if I'm wrong. I'm picking the Chiefs to win this game. I think the Chiefs will win this game comfortably. I'm taking them on the -7.5 handicap tonight. I think that the Raiders will struggle offensively. I feel that the crowd at Arrowhead will get under Carr and get under Devontae Adams. While the defense will try to stop Patrick Mahomes, the Chiefs will have far too much for the Raiders, and that's why I think the Chiefs will win this game comfortably. They'll win it 34-14. Colm, who have you got tonight?
I know that there's a decent contingent of Chiefs fans from Ireland and the UK gone out. I know Neil Blair, who is a regular viewer of this show, is out there. Patrick Mahomes has enjoyed playing against his divisional rivals in the AFC West. And for me, I think that will continue this evening. I have the Chiefs winning this.
Throughout the course of the Wednesday, Thursday last week when we were talking about this game, I was thinking I could see in numerous scenarios where the Raiders would run them close but not win the game. Then I started delving into the history of the game. I know the Raiders have turned them over, but then last year, I know Gus Bradley was there, but the Chiefs put up huge points on them. The Chiefs over the last 5 years have averaged 37.5 points per game against the Raiders team. So no matter who the defensive coordinator is, they always seem to find a way to put big points up on. And we've seen a Raiders offense that's been very stop-start over the course of the season. Can they live with that? It's hard to know. I can't see it, especially on a Monday night crowd behind the Chiefs. They've got to take Kelsey out of the game. Kelsey's had a great start to the season. Mahomes is 22-3 against the AFC West. I think by the time we hit 5 a.m. tonight, it'll be 23-3, and the Chiefs roll on ahead of what is a massive game on Sunday, and the Raiders are left propping up the division.
Indeedy. I'm calling a halt on tonight's broadcast. I'm too tired. Have you anything to say, Colin?
A full house. If Raiders fans are looking for hope, I think that is certainly certainly gives it to you, because generally when we go across the board, it very often tends to be the case. Somebody's asking who's going to have a better season, Robert Saleh or Mo Salah.
Robert.
Well, I think it's Robert, certainly at the moment.
Actually, Colin, thanks for the heads up on that whole Salah situation, because that's how my brother ended his wedding speech on Saturday, saying that he hopes Liverpool would lose on Sunday. And shout out to Sean on this broadcast, because Sean has ruined my life now. Who gets married the day before that London game? I'm actually exhausted. How have we done this broadcast tonight? How have I found the energy?
Sorry.
Just one more. I see Declan had a question in terms of Barkley MVP. I think we all know that the MVP tends to be the prettiest quarterback, but certainly Offensive Player of the Year, Comeback Player of the Year, I think could well be in the running for both. Brian.
Well, I want to congratulate Sean, Michael's brother, who did get married the weekend. Every week on Monday, one of his users are usually tired, and one of his rocks up wearing a hat. So I was a bit concerned that we could go a week where there's no hat worn in the show. So I just thought, even that's in it.
Absolute state of that height. For people listening to this, he's wearing a Giants hat, but I realised I don't see him.
I don't think I've worn a hat in years, but if there's ever a good Monday to wear a hat, it's this. So there you go, Michael.
There you go. And shout out to everybody I met at the wedding that listened to this podcast, including Kevin. I know you're listening or watching. Couldn't believe it. There, it's a small world, lads. Presented by Cassidy Travel. Check out the link in the bio. Click on Game Pass. We're back Wednesday at 10. And Thursday at 9:30. Is that correct? Okay. Yeah. Happy days. There's no London game this week, and that's it for the week. Follow us at IRENFL. Check out the podcast, and we'll see you soon. Brian, put the hat on again.
One more shout out, Michael. We were outside the ground yesterday. Raider Lee, who was a keen follower of the show, came up and had a nice chat with me and Colin. He'll be staying up late to watch the game tonight, so best of luck to all the Raiders and Chiefs fans tonight.
Yeah, you can see how tired I am. Sorry about clicking all that wrong. And big shout out to him, and a shout out to everyone who watches this show. We'll see you on Wednesday. Keeper led Slongafoyle. Good luck, Kai. Good luck.